Ako po ay si Karina Alganes, 59 years old, may asawa at 5 anak at 4 na apo. Ako po ay na-diagnose ng stage 4 breast cancer noong 2010. Kumalat na daw sa liver, sa lungs at bone ang sakit ko. Noong 2010 na yon, naimbitahan akong sumali sa Marian Clinical Trial. May kaibigan kasi ang anak kong taga-Cardinal na nakapag-refer sa amin kay Dr. Tiambeng. Fortunately, qualified ang situation ko para makapasok sa trial. Pero nung time na yon, ayoko na talaga. Ayokong sumali kasi natatakot akong magpa-chemo. Stage 4 na eh. Wala namang stage 5. Sa isip ko, bakit pa ako magpapagamot? Pero dahil sa pagpapaliwanag ni Dr. Tiambeng, nakumbinsi din ako. Nung simula, linggo-linggo ako nagkikimo. Tumagal ito ng 3 taon hanggang sa naging every 21 days na lang. Sa awa ng Diyos, buhay pa naman ako. Makalipas ang more than 10 years na gamutan. Naasikaso ko pa ang pamilya ko at patuloy na nagpapagamot. Kayang-kaya pa. Tapos na ang clinical trial pero patuloy pa ding sinasagot ng sponsor ang maintenance treatment ko. Base sa huli kong CT scan, nawala na din ang mga bukol ko sa lungs at liver. Malaking tulong ito sa pamilya ko dahil wala namang kaming pinansyal na kakayahang suportahan ang pagpapagamot ko. Sa mga pasyenteng nagtatanong kung okay ang sumali sa clinical trial, masasabi ko, subukan nyo lang. Baka itong para sa inyo. Kapag nagsimula na kayo, sumunod kayo sa ibibili ng mga doktor. Huwag rin kayong mahihiyang magtanong at magsabi ng mga nararamdaman nyo. Alamin nyo mabuti ang nangyayari sa katawan nyo. Sa mga medical oncologist, sana ay marami pang maging researcher sa inyo upang matulungan ang mga pasyenteng tulad namin. Huwag nyo lang pong kalilimutan na maaring pare-pareho kami ng sakit, pero iba-ibang pagtanggap ng bawat pasyente sa sakit na cancer. May kanya-kanya kaming pinagdadaanan at takot. Pero lahat kami patuloy na umaasang gagaling pa. Kaya importante sa inyong mahabang pasensya at matyagang pagpapaliwanag at ang panitilihing bukas ang komunikasyon sa mga pasyente.
That was Karina, 11 years after her diagnosis of stage 4 breast cancer and counting. She is only one of the hundreds of patients who give me reason to continue what I am doing as a clinical researcher despite the challenges. It all started in 2008 when Dr. Valerie Chan, my mentor and idol, told us, "You should all be doing at least one research project so you get to experience it." Dr. Chan was principal investigator of 10 to 15 clinical trials at the same time, while maintaining a busy private practice in Cardinal, MCM, and UST, teaching medical students in UP and UST, and chairing the medical oncology training program at veterans. I remember saying to myself, I don't think I could handle it, clinical research and private practice while taking care of my growing family, having just given birth to my 4th child, whose older siblings were a toddler and 2 preschoolers. Research demands a lot of time from the researcher. A consultation that would normally take 15 to 20 minutes with a private patient can extend to 45 minutes to an hour with a clinical trial patient. Then the documentation that one must do after that may take another hour or so and can drive your patients to its limits. Every symptom and PE finding has to be explained. The clinical significance of every laboratory abnormality that went outside the normal range has to be determined, graded, and assessed, whether related to the investigational product or not, etc., etc. In research, there is no such thing as belaboring the obvious. Our CRAs always tell us, if it wasn't recorded, it didn't happen. Then, there's the issue of budget. While being a clinical researcher can be very financially rewarding, there are also some financial risks involved, especially when your sponsor does not maintain an office in the Philippines and your hospital would not give them a credit line. In a few occasions, I had to give the credit line, shelling out personal funds so that my patient's treatment will not get delayed. Don't worry, they all got paid after some time. Then there's the pressure to enroll or recruit patients. For slow enrolling trials, I would get calls from my CRA and trial managers asking me why I am not screening enough patients and what I am doing about it. For fast enrolling trials, when we go beyond our target number of randomized patients, I get warned of a possible FDA or EMEA audit. And if you get unlucky enough to be chosen for such, either because you are a top recruiting site or have a lot of serious adverse events, you must be able to solicit the support of every clinical, ancillary, and technical department of your institution to survive, aside from personally preparing for the longest revalida of your life. So 12 years after my first clinical trial, why am I still doing it? It is because of Karina and the many more that followed after her. Because a clinical trial is the only hope for an indigent or even an average income earning Filipino to avail of the state-of-the-art in cancer management and get a fair chance at surviving his cancer. Because our trial patients get the rare privilege to receive a drug that will take 2 to 5 years to get registered in the Philippines. By the way, our trial patients were one of the first to receive TDM1 in the country. And because there is no greater reward than seeing the fruits of your labor when you see your patients beat the odds because the clinical trial gave them a second lease at life. So after 12 years of being a principal investigator of some of the landmark trials that have landed on the pages of JCO, New England Journal, Lancet, and the like, these are the pearls I want to share with you. First, accept only trials whose target patient population are those that you regularly see at your clinic. It is pointless to go through the process of site qualification, IRB submissions, investigators' meetings, site initiations, and then have 0 patients to enroll. While maintaining a good relationship with your colleagues help so they refer their patients to you, most of the patients will still come from your own practice. It is therefore very helpful to affiliate yourself with a government hospital where many patients will be interested in joining a clinical trial. Second, hire competent, honest, and meticulous study coordinators. They will make your life easier and can cut the hours you spend in the research room by half. Delegate responsibility and pay your staff well to keep them happy and motivated. Third, keep a separate bank account exclusively for research so you get a good grasp of your research-related expenses and earnings. As much as possible, request your sponsor to pay the hospital and even some of your staff directly. It makes accounting simpler and your taxes lower. At the end of the day, remember that the buck stops with you. The principal investigator is responsible for everything that happens in the trial. Even if it is not your fault and you are not directly responsible for a protocol violation, you still sign the report as if you did it. So, obsessive compulsiveness is a trait that every clinical researcher must possess, because anything less spells of a critical audit finding. Finally, I pray you keep this in mind, for it is by grace that we are saved through faith. It is the gift of God, not of works, that no one should boast. For we are God's workmanship, created in Christ Jesus for good works, which God has prepared beforehand that we should walk in them. Taken from Ephesians 2, verses 8 to 10, ESV. I firmly believe that I became a medical oncologist because He wanted me to. Not just because my dad had NPCA when I was in third year medical school, or that I loved biochemistry and pharmacology. On the contrary, God allowed those things to happen because He was shaping me to be the medical oncologist that I am today. My career as a clinical researcher also did not just fall on my lap. It is a result of the many years of training and hard work that made me say, "Yes, Lord, I will follow, for this is the good work that you have prepared for me to do." How about you? Are you ready to take on the challenge?
Good evening, everyone. I am Dr. Gracieux Fernando, and I would like to thank the PSMO for allowing me to participate in this activity for fellows, where we can give you some tips on the career choices that you can make once your training is completed. In my case, I would like to discuss the options of a career in the academic community. As far as I can trace, my medical career has always been associated with an academic setting, having current service with two universities and one medical school, as well as a graduate school. And that the cool thing about this is that this association allows you to earn the title of professor, a person who teaches a branch of knowledge, a title which carries with it much respect but also much responsibility. My journey in the academic career was a long and difficult but ultimately rewarding one. And I must confess that this decision was not an automatic one that I made consciously during my time in training. Actually, it began as a choice of convenience. And I must admit that I made the decision for two quite shallow reasons. You see, upon completing fellowship, I realized that I had no place to go and no practice to speak of, and felt challenged by the prospect of starting one. The easy way out was to stay where I was and to help the section as a junior consultant while slowly building a practice of my own. But the second reason was a bit more selfish. You see, at that time, I had developed a budding relationship with a younger co-fellow, and I just wanted to spend more time with her. So I started as a junior consultant at PGH, helping with the daily running of the section. During that time, I was fortunate to get inspiration and guidance from three senior consultants who taught me the intricacies of academic life. From Dr. Antonio Villalon, I learned the skills of mentorship and administration. Dr. Corazon Ngelangel endowed me with the importance of research and the need for further studies. But my greatest lesson from her was the ability to dance in front of an audience, a no mean feat, particularly for a person with two left feet. But the person who really inspired me to take teaching seriously was Dr. Valerie Fulon Chan, a dedicated teacher who handled multiple training institutions. She took me under her wing, taught me the nuances of undergraduate education, and instilled in me the ability to guide and interact with my students. It is with pride that I profess that my teaching career was mostly due to her quiet but efficient guidance and example. As a consequence, I was eventually accepted as a faculty both in PGH and UARM. This was also a time when I was introduced to a young and ambitious orthopedic surgeon, Dr. Edward Wang, who would invite me into his study group and eventually introduce me to the enigmatic world of sarcomas, a subspecialty that I have grown to love and respect and practice for the duration of my career. Having been accepted as a consultant in medical oncology, I was encouraged by my then head, Dr. Ngelangel, to seek further studies in the form of a master's degree in health education. Thus was I introduced to the National Teachers Training Center for Health Professions at UP Manila, beginning a 5-year masteral course in health professions education that would cement my academic career and strongly influence my future life and reputation. I completed my education in 2004 with a thesis defense, earning my master's degree in health professions education. This was followed by an accelerated promotion to associate professor at URM, while I continued as a clinical professor at PGH. Thus began some of the most difficult times of my life, highlighted by marked responsibilities in both the undergraduate and postgraduate educations. In the interim, I was also called to serve at PSMO by creating the codes of procedures of the Philippine Specialty Board of Medical Oncology and acting as its chair for that particular committee until I served as a society president in 2004. By the second decade of the 21st century, I was by now deeply ensconced in the academic world. Fortunately, my contributions were eventually recognized, earning me an associate professorship at PGH as well. I was also invited to teach medical education at the Graduate School of UERM and was eventually invited as a visiting lecturer at the Ateneo School of Medicine, an assignment that gave me great joy, for it allowed me the opportunity to come home and serve my pre-med alma mater. All in all, I have been a consultant in medical oncology from 1995 to 2021, a span of 26 years, a duration in time greater than half of my lifetime. The academic experience came with a lot of cost, and basically, I paid for the privilege of being an academic by by using the following elements. First was time. Everyone believes that I came into teaching because I love it. That is far from the truth. Actually, I do not enjoy teaching, particularly its administrative nature, which requires you to attend meetings, create exams, create lesson plans, make exam questions, check exam papers, establish passing standards. These were activities that I truly detested. Rather, what I enjoyed was learning, the feeling of acquiring new knowledge and skills and imparting these to the next generation. To see the spark of joy in the eyes of the student when the new knowledge was learned and understood was the drug that kept me in the academic world. But the price I paid for that high was the scatwork which I paid with the currency of time. Indeed, I would find that nearly 70% of my time was spent on these difficult and down-to-earth, unappetizing assignments. The second was income, specifically lost income. Teaching is not a high-paying occupation, and no one gets into it for the money. In fact, we used to joke and refer to our monthly stipend from UARM as our lunch money, for that was all it could actually pay for. But at least I was paid. In PGH, I was WOC or without compensation for 18 years before I was eventually recognized and received a monthly stipend for my efforts. And since most of the time was spent on these low-paying activities, it ate into opportunities to create a lucrative private practice. At one point, there was a time when my wife was actually making more than I did while working less than I was. It would take years before I would actually close the gap. And honestly, I still feel that I have never caught up with my contemporaries who opted not to go into the teaching profession. And third is opportunity, specifically lost opportunity. Not only did I lose income, but my time commitments meant limited chances for learning other things. I had no time to go abroad for additional studies, no time for international conferences. And late in my career, when I would have the chance to mingle with colleagues from other international institutions. That is why I was quite grateful for being included in the sarcoma medicine group, for this was finally my chance to rub shoulders with others of my kind from different countries. Yet, even here, I would feel the loss of opportunity, having realized that these people were in collaboration with each other since early in their oncology careers, while I was a late bloomer. But throughout my journey, I've survived by relying on two coping mechanisms. The first was acceptance, the realization that my situation was unique to myself and a product of who I was. Acceptance allowed me to come to terms with who I was, to find satisfaction in what I had, and to move forward. The second was perseverance. After accepting the nuances of my life and the consequences of my choices, perseverance allowed me to keep moving, to find meaning in the daily grind, and to find satisfaction in the fruits of my achievements, no matter how small or seemingly inconsequential they may be. So, when selecting a future career, is the academic track one that you should consider? My experience taught me that unless you deal with the following, academics may not be the best choice for you. The first is you have to have a lot of patience. You see, the work is challenging. Students can be difficult. The hours are long. And when you have to do the work in an era of great uncertainty, as what we find ourselves in right now with the COVID pandemic, then the work can be several levels more difficult. So if you do not have the patience to withstand these challenges, academics may not be a career choice for you. The second is fear of audiences. Teaching will always require you to speak. It's a given, irregardless of the scenarios. So if you have stage fright or if you have difficulty in expressing yourself, academics may not be the career for you. Third are other plans. Education, as I have said, is a time-consuming activity. So if you have other plans you'd like to achieve, think twice before mixing them up with the academic way of life. The fourth, meetings. These are given, and they can be grueling, exhausting, long, and boring. And they can be particularly magnified when one considers the situation that we are currently in, particularly when online meetings are concerned and people start complaining of what we now call a Zoom fatigue. So if you are a person who does not like regular, frequent meetings, this is not a career option for you. Paperwork. After endless meetings, paperwork is the second curse of education. Tests to write and to check, reports to read and grade, curricula to prepare, academic outcomes to report. Education is endless paperwork. And if this is something that is not appealing to you, this is again not a career choice for you. Requirements. The third curse of education. Not only do you have to work to accomplish assignments to do, curricula to prepare, tests to write, you also have requirements to fulfill to keep your position viable. Meetings need to be attended. Attendance need to be signed into. Professorial lectures need to be delivered. Research requirements need to be achieved. All filed annually. A recurring activity till retirement. Needless to say, something not for the faint of heart. And finally, this is a thankless job. For all the work you do, the thanks can be minimal or non-existent. You may be doing a good job, but praise is quite limited and in short supply because doing a good job is assumed to be the norm in the field of education. So if you cannot live without praises, this is not a career field for you. Having mentioned the negatives, is the academic life still a viable career choice? In my experience, the answer is always affirmative. Although the rewards can be personal and appreciated only after much reflection. But they are all life-changing and always for the better. I met the person who I would share the rest of my life with because of my academic life. It had allowed me to meet, befriend, and collaborate with some of the finest minds in medical oncology. It has taught me to disseminate and to share everything that I've learned with other audiences. It has taught me to dance in front of an audience, even if it was an activity that I never considered doing in my lifetime. It has allowed me to share what I have learned with others of my field through basic research. It was a stepping stone for me to give me membership for both local and international organizations, where I have learned new ideas and created new collaborations. It has imbued my life with so much meaning and value and changed me into a better person, a more effective educator, and a far more skilled clinician. But its greatest rewards lie in the products that I have helped mold and train. Many have gone on to be leaders in their respective fields and localities. And every time I see one of my graduates do well, I feel that satisfying sense that in some small way, I had a hand in their success. One of my most satisfying moments is to hear an applicant to the medical oncology program of PGH state in their interview that listening to one of my lectures was one of the major influences that allowed them to select medical oncology as a subspecialty career. The feeling jives with one of the ulterior motives I've had with teaching. You see, my wife and I were never blessed with children. Thus, I never experienced the joys of fatherhood. But when you train and mold young doctors and watch them grow through their career, the closest that I have come to feeling just what a father could have felt. So I am proud to say that I may not have children of my own, but I have lots of sons and daughters, and all of them are doctors, and all of them are medical oncologists. So, as a final word, if there is a reason for joining the academic community, it is because one wants to pay it forward. That is, to invest in the future by training the next generation. Because if medical oncology is to thrive as a subspecialty, and if we want to continue to be of service to cancer patients, then there must be those of us who must take the responsibility to train the next generation. It is an honorable way of returning the favor to a subspecialty that has given us life, meaning, and purpose. True, academic life can be tedious and difficult, but in exchange, we get purpose and we get respect. And I can think of no better way to serve both oncology and medicine. Thank you very much for your kind attention. I look forward to some further interactions in our open forum. Good day and thank you.
Happy greetings to all. Dr. Iris called me up and asked if I could talk briefly on something towards a career in research and government, and what has inspired me towards this direction amidst my medical profession. So, okay, I thank the organizers of this panel discussion for having me here to give you a glimpse of my journey towards the pursuit of a career in research. Growing up, I love looking at numbers and putting them together to get a meaningful conclusion. I often walk to school from home, walking with my book open, looking at numbers, not minding if I stumble along the way or be late to the roll call prior entering the classroom. My teacher always reporting me to my mom. As I grew older, my bookishness along with my curiosity grew and I dove into the world of science. I gave my elementary valedictory address on the pursuit of science. My dad's father took the brooch from my grandma, who was wearing it, and then came to the stage and pinned it on me. He prodded me to take up medical school and to teach science. My high school is the nation's science high school. I was within the Philippine Science High School experimental first three batches. And the concept of research is incredibly intimidating at first, but being in this school molded anyone into science and research. I was surrounded with geniuses, and this molded me into their likeness. But I kept to my own uniqueness. I led my class girls basketball team, given the best team award, forging forward even though we never won. I joined the singing contest, and while I was singing, the heavens opened up with a heavy rainfall. Not sure if this put me in the third place, bested by two male schoolmates who sang without a snag. Then medical school. I kept my promise to my grandfather in the premier medical school of the country. Having to join the Philippine experts answering clinical questions that guides medical practice is a steep learning curve. I was really fortunate to have some amazing mentors to guide me through the process. I remember one of my first memorable research experience with a renowned Philippine cardiologist, Dr. Ramon Abarquez. You see, being called upon by Dr. Abarquez to do research with him is a rarity. I had the opportunity of working on an amazing project looking at atrial fibrillation and the field of digitoxin. We had publications and awards. I was always pushed to ask questions. What is our research question? Why is this question important? How can we go about answering this question? What do our results mean? What are the expectations of our results? I was guided through the process of examining the literature, designing a project, and got some results. My thirst for knowledge grew. A thirst for knowledge is very important for research and will always keep you motivated. And if your knowledge is helpful in making others' life easy, then the smile on their faces will always keep you motivated. I became passionate about research. Passionate about research. If you are, then somehow that research is going to fill the gap between what you have and what you want. The desire of fulfillment will keep you motivated after bringing new theory, new trend, any new thing will create a benchmark and mankind will remember you for a really long time. I will give you two quotes by two famous personalities who are not really similar in their personalities. John Bon Jovi said, "Nothing is as important as passion. No matter what you want to do with your life, be passionate." Albert Einstein said, "I have no special talents. I am only passionately curious." Last year, I kept on feeding people in DOH on how to establish the Philippine Cancer Center Research Arm. And the young manager responded to me thanking my quote, eagerness. Quote, unquote, eagerness. I wrote him back and I said, "It is not really eagerness, but I have been on this direction since the time of Secretary Bengson, and it is my job to finish what we started in the then Cancer Control Task Force to now the fulfillment of what we started, the Cancer Control Now Allow on its own." And this is passion. Next, Dr. Ernesto Domingo, then PGH Department of Medicine chair, called me aside and sent me to study Masters of Clinical Epidemiology at the University of Pennsylvania under the Rockefeller Scholarship Program. I just finished my stint as PGHIM Chief Resident and Medical Oncology Fellow, and here now is an unplanned clinical epidemiology just happening my way, and this pushed me to research big time. Nothing compares with having a formal training in research. You become an expert in research methodology on top of your being a medical specialty content expert. The desire for knowledge grew, and I became more passionately curious. Medicine, as you all know, is a field of research. As a doctor, you eat and breathe research. Everything you do is research. Research is all about asking clinically focused questions that will help guide clinical practice. When a patient comes to you for care, he becomes your focus of research. You ask questions of what, when, how, where, who, from your patient. You gather data and intervene and get results. If you want research as a main focus of your medical life, first brainstorm about a particular aspect of medicine that interests you, and this is usually your specialty. Then explore a few clinical problems that remain in that field. Network and team up with others who have similar interests and keep on asking. Being a content expert, oncology, and if it's a research methodology expert, and networking brings you in the spotlight. Government and non-government institutions will notice you. I just came back from the University of the Pennsylvania studies, and it was immediate past EDSA revolution. Dr. Bengson, who was then the Secretary of Health at the time, was reorganizing DOH and just formed the Cancer Control Task Force headed by Dr. Antonio Periquet. UP Dr. Ernesto Domingo and Dr. Riodica, who was RAD-ONC, called me to join the task force. I was needed because I was an oncology content expert and at the same time a research methodology expert, and my Bachelor of Science degree was public health. Public health is a very important background since Department of Health is all about public health. I was in the recipe for government involvement. I was a member of the Cancer Control Task Force, which became the Department of Health Advisory Council on Cancer Control for a very long time. I became Chief JR Medical Oncology, Chief UPPGH Medical Oncology, and Director UP Clinical Epidemiology. Now you have an oncology specialty expert, a research methodology expert, a public health expert, and so your expertise and the research that you do and the research that you gather can be used in policy decision making, formulation, and implementation, which are the important ingredients in government work. My being an oncology expert, a research methodology expert, brought me into policy formulation, also a very important aspect in government work. If you do research, make sure to publish it, and in relation to government, make sure that government uses your research outputs. These are some of my researches which found their way as a push for the Philippine Department of Health Cancer Control Program administrative orders. Cervical cancer particularly and breast cancer is screening for cervical and breast cancer. The use of research in policy formulation. I spoke at this symposium and I said the Philippines cannot rise from its cancer woes unless a cancer control law is enacted. I touched on the results of the ADB audit on the then current Philippine Cancer Control Program, and the lobby for such a law was strengthened. And in addition, our PESO results was fed to the legislators in drafting the Cancer Control Bill, which now became Republic Act 112151. The interface of government, policy formulation, the ability to transform technical and scientific proposals into policy changes to be implemented or in progress or reform policies is a process involving much more than the actor's will or even the technical quality of the scientific information recommending such a change because ideological, political, and contractual factors are decisive for the proposal's formulation and the courses of action chosen to implement it. And in government policy formulation, you must be very, very patient as this road has many, many bumps and forkways at a very, very snail pace. It took 33 years from DOH Cancer Control Task Force days, the journey's start, to the enactment of the National Integrated Cancer Control Law. And we were the members of the TWG of the IRR for NICA. Challenges will continue this 2021 as the implementation of NICA must begin even amidst other significant country problems like COVID pandemic. Thank you for listening.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you, PSMO, for inviting me for today's special session for our fellows in training. I am Marlowe Imperial, a medical oncologist and currently a medical director in IQVIA, a CRO company. I am very happy and pleased to be here and share with our fellows my career journey in cancer care. Before anything else, let me just ask, is there anyone here who is thinking of making a career in a non-clinical setting like a CRO? Are you guys familiar what is a CRO? Well, before we get into that, please allow me to share with you what made me explore this path in my career and how did I find my first ever job in a CRO. I had my medical proper in De La Salle University in Cavite, and during my freshman year, I remember one of our consultants saying that as a doctor, you won't only be treating patients, but also you can have a career as an educator or academician, an administrator or a manager, and also a researcher. And at that time, I thought that he was only talking about a career within the hospital. And that resonated to me all throughout my internship and residency training in UPPGH. And whenever me and my friends during residency talk about our career plans after IM training, most of us were already set on embarking to take our subspecialization, while a few were preparing to take USMLE. I even remember myself saying na wala akong ibang alam kundi ang gumamot ng pasyente. And perhaps some of you also thought about this, unconsciously limiting ourselves to a path that we thought that there only is. I finally decided to take a year off after completing my residency training instead of going to fellowship training. I wanted to give myself a chance to know what I really wanted. In my mind, I asked, is it possible for me to work overseas without taking USMLE? That my credentials would be enough for me to get a job? And while I was looking for opportunities in the internet, I stumbled upon a job looking for a clinical research physician or CRP. And there were so many at that time outside the Philippines. And Most of these require an oncology background. So I became fascinated and excited with oncology drug development and how promising the advances that this field can offer to cancer patients. This got me so interested and made me decide that I wanted to do oncology. So I went back to PGH and applied for their oncology fellowship program. Though I really love the clinical part of oncology, like the day-to-day patient interaction, my desire to embark on research did not leave me. As per advice by Dr. Ngelangel, I tried to get a research fellowship program in King's College London, but it did not materialize until I saw a clinical research physician role, and they were looking for that person to be based in Manila. So I grabbed that chance and I was very fortunate to get that job. And this was in Icon Clinical Research. What made me decide to leave practice? Leaving my clinical practice was not part of my plan. In fact, while working with Icon, I was still doing my clinical practice. However, during this time, I felt that for me to be able to do better as a CRP, I need to know how cancer patients are being managed by the more advanced countries where most of my trials were being done. Then came an opportunity to do clinical fellowship in National Cancer Center Singapore, and this was through PSMO. Their program will also enable me to subspecialize, and I was very interested in lung cancer and lymphoma. So I resigned from my job and have to pause my clinical practice to fly here in Singapore. Working in NCCS was a very great experience. We worked so hard and every day is a long day. But that experience taught me so many things. I have met and worked with a lot of amazing consultants and made long lasting connections. When I reached my last year in NCCS, I started planning to go back to resume my clinical practice. I started talking with some of my consultants and my mentors to help me get back to my practice. But then came the opportunity to work with Quintiles, which is now IQVIA. I have already heard about Quintiles, even when I was with Icon. They were winning more studies more than Icon at that time. And to me, it was a big deal because Quintiles is a bigger company than Icon. I became more interested when I learned that I would be working with another PSMO fellow, Dr. Alma Panganiban, who eventually became my boss. Although with this job, I won't be able to do clinical practice here in Singapore because for foreigners, you can only do clinical work if you are attached to a hospital. And it's not possible to have two jobs. That's why I have to give up my clinical career and work full time in a CRO. Okay, what is a CRO and what do I do? A CRO, or a contract research organization, is a company that runs clinical trials for pharmaceutical and biotech companies. Running a clinical trial is difficult for pharma because this will entail a lot of resources and that could be very expensive for them. That's why they hire CROs who have more resources. As a medical monitor, I provide my medical knowledge and expertise to the day-to-day operations of oncology trials. My company relies on my knowledge as an oncologist to answer medical questions from our study sites and our internal team, like what to do with the study drug if there was an AE, or if a patient with this particular medical history can he or she be eligible for the trial. Aside from answering medical queries, we also provide training to our internal team about oncology and also about the clinical trial protocols. And for myself, I am now heavily involved with the medical strategy. Like I am asked to provide input into the study design of a particular novel molecule and how the sponsor client can improve their study to better recruit patients. I also review preclinical or animal studies of a particular first in human molecule to assess if the starting dose or the human equivalent dose and the dose escalation strategy for the phase 1 trial is safe and appropriate. I also help with the business development activities where we meet with sponsors, present our strategy on how to conduct and operationalize their clinical trial in our hope that they will award their study to us. There are a lot of things that I like about my job. First is you get to witness what drugs are coming. I was even part of the teams who worked in ipilimumab, avelumab, just to name a few, many years ago. And look at now, they are approved and available in the market. With this, I feel fulfilled that I get to help many cancer patients by ensuring that the trials we have done does not only consider efficacy, but also equally important that it's safe. Also, since you are working on different trials, you get the chance to meet and exchange ideas with key opinion leaders and foster collaborative relationship with oncologists from other countries. I also like working in a multicultural setting, especially here in Asia. Since this is a regional role, you get to work with people from different countries with different culture and background and on a day-to-day basis. I don't like it when we put a lot of time and effort getting ready to present our company, our ideas, or strategy to a client when they are looking to hire for a CRO, and we were not selected to run the study in the end. It seems like you've put a lot of effort for nothing. Also, the sedentary lifestyle, being an office job, you'd be sitting most of the time. Unlike when you are working in a hospital, you walk a lot of times when you do your rounds, when you go from one clinic or another. Pros and cons. Getting broad exposure to a lot of different drugs and drug company sponsors within a few short years is a plus. You get to see how different companies approach similar problems in different ways and gain valuable experience along the way. It is also an advantage that you have the flexibility to work remotely, especially in this time of pandemic. And for the most part, to set my own schedule. As long as I am available to work by phone for anything urgent and able to attend my conference calls and get my work done, most importantly. The day is mine to work in whatever else I need to. I guess another advantage in working in a company is the employee benefits like the HMO. We get regular health screening for free. In some companies, they do provide transportation and lifestyle allowances. Also, in some CROs, they can offer stocks or equity grant options too. If you want to take a course or attend a conference for your CME, they can also sponsor you as well. A downside of pursuing this field is that you are not just working on one drug or compound, and you don't have the final word on how the study will be designed or carried out. Also, since this is an office job, there is no actual patient interaction because there is no chance to do that. And we are all bound to confidentiality agreement. For someone who is used to day-to-day patient interaction, this could be a setback, of course. Okay, to conclude, I hope I was able to help our fellows understand more about the CRO industry. Remember, do not limit yourself into just one path. Your medical knowledge in oncology is your power, and your clinical experience makes you limitless, enabling you to do so many ways to contribute in cancer care. Also, get yourself a mentor because having one will really help you at any period of your career. Should you have any additional questions or you would like to learn more, feel free to drop a message, connect with me through email or through any of my social media accounts. Thank you so much for your attention.